Will the Biden administration finally be a sign of hope for Indigenous people, for Native Americans? Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. And on the line with us is Julian Brave NoiseCat, who is the Vice President of Policy and Strategy at Data for Progress, proud member of the Canim Lake Band. And I'm not sure how to pronounce your tribe there, Julian. You want to give it to me?
It's Tsq'escen.
Thank you. Tsq'escen, and the descendant of the Lil'Wat Nation of Mount Currie. JulianBraveNoiseCat.com is the website. Julian is also, along with me, a presenter at Bioneers. His Twitter handle, JNoiseCat. And Julian, give me a Native American perspective, if you would, on the incoming administration, on the cabinet picks that we've seen. I understand that, rather than my guesses, I'd like to listen to you. What do you think? How are things shaking out?
Well, firstly, I would just say that my perspective is obviously just one perspective, and there's, many perspectives, of course, across Indian country. There's 574 federally recognized tribes, American Indian and Alaska Native tribal communities. So, hard to say that there is one Native perspective. But, I would generally say that there is a good deal of hope for the incoming Biden administration. One of the chief reasons for this is that Representative Deb Haaland of the Laguna Pueblo in the 1st Congressional District of New Mexico is being considered for the Secretary of Interior, which is a cabinet position. The Secretary of Interior leads the Department of the Interior, which is the agency that manages public lands, natural resources, and also the government-to-government relationship with those 574 tribes across the country. And we've actually never had a Native Interior Secretary. We've never had a Native Cabinet Secretary. And so the potential for Congresswoman Haaland to be tapped for that role, I think has gotten lots of Indian country incredibly excited. And for that reason, we've seen a broad groundswell of support behind her candidacy coming out of tribal leaders, as well as progressives and environmental activists. And so, I think obviously a change in power is a moment of both excitement and I think a little bit of anxiety for folks who are engaged in politics. It's the moment where we transition from campaign promises to policy implementation. But I think there is some hope that the Biden administration could make some potentially historic headway on Indigenous rights and tribal affairs.
Well, and the current head of the Interior Department, who, as I recall, is a coal lobbyist or an oil lobbyist before he got this job, has been quite enthusiastic about raping and destroying lands that have been sacred to Indigenous people on this continent for centuries, for millennia. And it seems like such a good thing that Deb Haaland is being considered for that. What are there other kind of high points, or do you want to speak to some of the things that Interior has done that are so destructive that you'd like to see undone?
Yeah, so, the Trump administration's record when it comes to environmental issues, when it comes to the management of public and federal lands and natural resources has been probably one of the worst of certainly the 21st century, if not, going back for a good deal of time. Just, a quick sort of cursory overview. The Trump administration removed sacred native lands like the Bears Ears National Monument and Grand Staircase Escalante from sort of their protected national monument, national park status, and started opening them up to extractive industries like mining, oil, and gas. Actually, on the 7th, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, which, if your listeners will recall, was included, drilling and leasing permitting was opened up in it through the Trump tax cuts for billionaires and corporations as sort of an accounting trick to say that the Trump administration had some revenue sources lined up to pay for those tax cuts, which were going to, sort of bankrupt the Treasury in favor of putting money in the pockets of already very wealthy people. Leasing in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge is going to open up on December 7th. And again, that is also land that is considered sacred by Indigenous peoples, specifically the Tsq'escen, who live in Alaska, as well as the northern parts of Canada across the border, and rely on the caribou herds that move through that landscape for their sustenance and cultural survival. So, the Trump administration has had a really tough record on these issues, and I think that obviously putting a Native American and an environmental champion and a climate champion in that role would be great.